Chief Scientist Nira stood before the massive observation window in the crystal spire, her crystalline form refracting the weakening sunlight into diminishing rainbow patterns across the laboratory floor. The data floating before her in holographic displays confirmed her worst fears. Their sun was dying far faster than anyone had predicted. Her assistant, Vero, entered the lab, his usually bright azure form dulled with concern. "The latest readings from the solar monitoring stations," he said, extending a data crystal. "They match your projections." Naira absorbed the information directly through her crystalline matrix, each number striking like a physical blow. Their star had perhaps 5 years left before its radiation would become too weak to sustain their species. The Lumiri had evolved to depend entirely on their sun's specific wavelengths of light, converting it into energy through their crystalline bodies. Without it, they would become inert, essentially dead. "Call an emergency session of the High Council," Naira commanded, her voice resonating with harmonic overtones of distress. "All members must be present." Hours later, Naira stood in the Chamber of Light, surrounded by the 12 council members whose crystalline forms glowed with varying intensities of concern. High Counselor Zena, her ancient form a deep sapphire with age, spoke first. "Share your findings, Chief Scientist." The holographic displays materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the stark reality of their situation. "Our sun's core is collapsing at an exponential rate," Naira explained, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. "The artificial stabilization fields we implemented a century ago are failing. Without intervention, our species has less than 5 years before we lose our ability to absorb sufficient solar energy for survival." The chamber erupted in harmonic discord as council members projected their shock and fear. Zena raised her hand, restoring order. "What solutions have you explored?" "We've investigated every possibility within our current technology," Naira responded, displaying various simulations, increasing the efficiency of our absorption crystals, attempting to stabilize the star's core, even trying to adapt our bodies to absorb different wavelengths of light. Nothing has proven viable. Counselor Terran, his young crystalline form still showing traces of green, leaned forward. "What about the strange signals we've detected from the outer regions, the ones showing signs of intelligent life?" Naira activated a new display, showing the intercepted transmissions they'd been studying. "Yes, we've detected a species calling themselves humans. They appear to be rapidly expanding through space, and their technology, while different from ours, shows remarkable innovation. They've already solved several problems we considered impossible. You're suggesting we reach out to them?" Zena's tone carried both hope and caution. "We've never made contact with another spacefaring species. We've never faced extinction before," Naira countered. "These humans show a remarkable pattern in their transmissions. They value discovery, cooperation, and problem-solving. They've developed energy technologies we've never conceived of, precisely because their biology is so different from ours." The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled in. The Lumiri had always been self-sufficient, proud of their advanced civilization. Asking for help from an unknown species challenged everything they believed about themselves. Zena rose, her form catching the last rays of their dying sun. "Show us everything you've learned about these humans." For the next hour, Naira presented their observations, broadcasts showing human resilience in the face of disasters, scientific breakthroughs achieved through collaboration, and most importantly, their rapid advancement in energy technology. "They've mastered fusion, quantum energy extraction, and even stellar engineering on a small scale," Naira explained. "Their biological nature meant they had to solve energy problems we never faced. They couldn't simply absorb sunlight like we do. They had to find other ways." Zena surveyed the chamber, reading the shifting colors and patterns of her fellow council members. "We will vote. Should we risk everything we are by reaching out to these humans, or face our end with dignity?" One by one, the council members cast their votes through pulses of light. The final count was unanimous. They would seek help from humanity. As Naira left the chamber to begin composing their message, she paused at a window overlooking their capital city. Millions of her people went about their lives below, their crystalline forms shimmering in the weakening sunlight, unaware that their fate now rested on the response of beings they'd never met. "Let them be as wise as they are innovative," she whispered to the stars, beginning the complex task of translating their plea into a format humans would understand. The future of the Lumiri would depend not just on human technology, but on whether two vastly different species could find common ground in the face of extinction. Admiral Kirapitel stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, staring at the message that had been playing on repeat for the past hour. The crystalline data structure had taken their best quantum computers several days to decode, but the meaning was now clear. An advanced alien civilization was asking for humanity's help. Analysis confirms the transmission's origin. Lieutenant Riza Nazari reported, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. It's coming from a star system showing signs of accelerated stellar decay, exactly as their message indicates. Kira studied the sensor readings again. After 15 years of deep space exploration, humanity had encountered several alien species, but none as advanced as these Lumiri appeared to be. Their star system was surrounded by enormous energy collection structures that dwarfed anything humans had built. "Dr. Ivanov, your assessment." Kira turned to their chief scientist, who had barely slept since they'd decoded the message. Anastasia Ivanov looked up from her datapad, her gray eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. "Their technology is extraordinary, Admiral. They've developed crystalline computing and energy systems we've only theorized about. But their biology," she shook her head in wonder. "They're essentially living crystals that directly process stellar energy. It's remarkable." "And their sun is dying," Kira finished. The gravity of the situation wasn't lost on anyone on the bridge. An entire civilization faced extinction within 5 years unless humanity could help them find a solution. The ship's AI, Araya, manifested its holographic form beside Kira. "Admiral, I've completed analysis of their technological database. They've attached comprehensive information about their biology, energy requirements, and previous attempts at solutions. They're being remarkably open with their knowledge. Or remarkably desperate," Riza added quietly. Kira nodded. The Lumiri had included detailed schematics of their technology, as a show of trust, or perhaps as an offering. "Send word to Earth Command. We're proceeding to their system. Have the science team prepare first contact protocols." As the horizon changed course, Kira retreated to her ready room to study the Lumiri data in detail. Their civilization was ancient, having achieved space flight thousands of years before humans. Yet their biology had led them down a completely different technological path. They had mastered crystal-based technologies but never developed nuclear fusion or conventional electricity as humans knew it. 3 days later, the horizon emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Lumiri system. The sight took everyone's breath away. Massive crystalline structures orbited their dying sun, each one larger than Earth's moon. The structures glowed with stored energy, feeding it to the inhabited worlds below. "Multiple ships approaching," Reza announced. "Crystalline construction, minimal weapons from what I can detect. They're transmitting a welcome message." The main view screen activated, showing a crystalline being whose form shifted through shades of blue and violet. "I am Chief Scientist Naira of the Lumiri. On behalf of our people, we welcome you, humans of Earth. Thank you for answering our call." Kira stepped forward. "I'm Admiral Kirapitel of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We're here to help however we can." "Your journey was swift," Naira observed. "Our observations didn't suggest your ships could travel so quickly between stars. We've made some recent advances in quantum space technology," Kira replied diplomatically, noting how the Lumiri scientist's color shifted slightly. Was that interest? Surprise? "Then perhaps there is hope for us after all," Naira said. "We've prepared a docking station adapted for your ship's configuration. Our atmosphere has been adjusted to match your requirements in the designated meeting areas. We are eager to begin working together." As the Horizon maneuvered toward the massive crystalline space station, Kira couldn't help but marvel at the Lumiri's achievements. Their entire civilization was a testament to pursuing the single technological path to its ultimate conclusion. But that specialization had become their weakness once their sun began to fail. The docking procedure was flawless, the crystalline structure actually adapting its shape to perfectly match the Horizon's airlock. Dr. Ivanov led the first team of scientists through, their environmental suits equipped with additional sensors to study the Lumiri up close. Nara met them in a vast chamber whose walls pulsed with stored solar energy. Other Lumiri scientists gathered around, their crystalline forms varying in color and pattern. The human sensors immediately began recording everything, while the Lumiri seemed equally fascinated by their biological visitors. "Your message indicated you've tried to develop artificial energy sources," Anastasia said, getting straight to the point. "May we see your attempts?" Of course, Naira led them to a laboratory where various crystalline devices lay dormant. "We've tried to replicate the specific wavelengths our bodies need, but we can't generate them with sufficient intensity or stability." Anastasia studied the devices, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Have you considered quantum fusion coupled with photonic conversion? We might be able to." She stopped as she noticed the Lumiri scientists had all changed color simultaneously. Naira's form was now a brilliant azure. "You can create artificial stellar energy. Such a thing is possible." "Theoretically," Anastasia said carefully. "We'd need to adapt our technology to your specific needs, but yes, we've mastered several forms of artificial starfire, as we sometimes call it." The chamber filled with harmonic tones as the Lumiri communicated in their native way. Kira watched the exchange with diplomatic caution, but she could see the hope literally shining from within the crystalline beings. "Show us," Naira said simply, her form glowing with intensity. "Show us how you create your artificial suns." 6 weeks into the joint human-Lumiri project, the massive research facility aboard the crystalline station hummed with activity. Dr. Ivanov stood before a quantum fusion reactor specially modified to produce the specific light wavelengths the Lumiri needed. Around her, human and crystalline scientists worked in seamless coordination, their initial awkwardness long forgotten in the face of their monumental task. "Energy output is stable at 60% of natural solar radiation," Lieutenant Nazari called out, monitoring the complex array of sensors. "Wavelength matching is nearly perfect." Naira approached the reactor, her crystalline form analyzing the energy directly. "The intensity is improving, but it's still not enough. Our youngest need at least 80% to maintain proper growth." Anastasia nodded, making adjustments to the quantum matrix. The biggest challenge wasn't creating the energy. Humans had mastered that decades ago. The difficulty lay in matching the precise spectral signature of the Lumiri's dying sun. Their bodies had evolved over millions of years to process very specific wavelengths of light. "What if we're approaching this wrong?" A new voice joined the discussion. Dr. James Wilson, the Horizon's quantum physicist, had been quietly observing their attempts. "Instead of trying to perfectly match their sun's output, what if we help them adapt to process a broader spectrum?" The Lumiri scientists all turned toward him, their colors shifting in what the humans had learned to recognize as intense interest. Naira moved closer. "Explain." James projected a hologram of the Lumiri's crystalline structure. "Your bodies are essentially living photonic crystals. Theoretically, we could introduce certain quantum resonance patterns that would allow you to process different wavelengths of light. Combined with our artificial sources, it might be enough." The chamber filled with harmonic tones as the Lumiri discussed the possibility in their native communication. Naira's form pulsed with rapid color changes as she processed the idea. "It would mean fundamentally changing what we are." "Not changing," Anastasia corrected gently. "Evolving. Adapting. Just as humans had to adapt to live in space." Admiral Patel entered the laboratory, Accompanied by High Counselor Zena, the ancient Lumiri's deep sapphire form commanded immediate attention. "We've received word from Earth," Kira announced. "The Council has approved committing additional resources to the project. 3 more science vessels are on their way." "That's not all they sent," James added, his eyes bright with excitement. "They're bringing the plans for the Mars-Sun simulator, if we can scale that up." The Mars-Sun simulator had been humanity's first major achievement in stellar engineering. A massive array of fusion reactors and quantum light amplifiers that helped terraform Earth's neighbor, if they could adapt that technology to the Lumiri's needs. "Show me these plans," Naira requested. As the humans brought up the technical specifications, the Lumiri scientists gathered around, their forms glowing with increasing intensity as they grasped the possibilities. "We would need to construct at least 12 arrays," Senna observed, her ancient wisdom calculating resources and logistics. "Each one larger than anything we've built before." "You already have the raw materials," Kira pointed out. "Those energy collection structures in orbit, they could be converted." The next few hours dissolved into intense technical discussions. The Lumiri's mastery of crystalline technology perfectly complemented human expertise in fusion and quantum engineering. Where one species saw limitations, the other saw opportunities. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. "Solar flare," Riza shouted, reading the emergency data. "A massive one. The stars becoming more unstable." The Lumiri's forms dimmed collectively as the radiation wave approached. Humans rushed to their protective positions, but they watched in awe as the crystalline beings began to glow, their bodies absorbing and processing the violent solar energy. When the flare passed, Naira's form was pulsing with barely contained power. "Our sun's death throes are becoming more violent," she said, her voice carrying new harmonics from the absorbed energy. "We have less time than we thought." "Then we work faster," Anastasia declared, already modifying their designs. "We'll run parallel development teams, some working on the arrays, others on the resonance adaptation." James nodded, pulling up new simulations. "If we can get the first array operational quickly, it would buy us time to perfect the biological adaptations." High Counselor Zena moved to the center of the chamber, her ancient form commanding attention. "When our sun first began to die, we faced a choice between isolation and reaching out to unknown beings for help. Now we face another choice: remain as we are and perish, or evolve to survive." She turned to Admiral Patel. "Your people have shown us more than just technological solutions. You've shown us that true strength lies in adaptation, in being willing to change while keeping your essential nature intact." The next wave of human ships arrived 3 days later, bringing with them Earth's best stellar engineers and quantum physicists. As they docked with the station, they'd witnessed something unprecedented: humans and Lumiri working side by side, their differences forgotten in the race against time. A race that would either end in extinction or herald the birth of a new era of interstellar cooperation. 3 months of relentless work had transformed the outer reaches of the Lumiri system into a vast construction site. Massive crystalline structures were being reconfigured into solar arrays under the guidance of human engineering teams, while Lumiri technology allowed them to manipulate materials on a scale humans had never achieved. Admiral Patel stood in the command center with Naira and Dr. Ivanov, watching the holographic display of their progress. 11 of the 12 planned arrays were nearing completion, each one a testament to what their species could accomplish together. "First array is ready for full power test," James reported through the comm system. His team had been working on the quantum resonance modifications for weeks, preparing the Lumiri for their first exposure to artificial stellar energy. "Volunteer group is in position," Naira added, her form shifting with nervous energy. She would be leading the first group of Lumiri to test the new radiation wavelengths, despite the Council's objections to risking their chief scientist. "Initiating startup sequence," Anastasia announced, her fingers dancing across the control interface. The massive array began to glow, its crystalline structure channeling energy in patterns that mimicked their dying sun. The test chamber had been specially prepared. 20 Lumiri volunteers stood ready, their forms dulled from the recent decrease in solar radiation. Human medical teams monitored everything from behind protective shields, ready to shut down the array at the first sign of trouble. Energy levels at 20%, James called out. The array's glow intensified, bathing the chamber in artificial sunlight. The Lumiri began to respond, their forms brightening slightly. 40%. The crystalline beings started to pulse with absorbed energy, their colors becoming more vibrant. Naira's form shifted through shades of blue and violet as her body processed the new wavelengths. 60%. 70. Suddenly, warning alarms blared. Power fluctuation in the main reactor. Reese's voice cut through the chamber. The quantum matrix is destabilizing. Radiation levels are spiking, Anastasia warned, her hands flying over the controls. The wavelength is shifting out of safe parameters. The Lumiri in the chamber began to resonate at frequencies that made the human's teeth rattle. Naira's form was blazing now, almost too bright to look at. "Don't shut it down," she commanded. "We need to see if we can adapt." "It's going to breach," James shouted. "The containment field won't hold." Admiral Patel made the call. "Shut it down. Now." But before they could act, something extraordinary happened. The Lumiri volunteers began to change. Their crystalline structures shifted, reorganized, adapted in real time to the chaotic energy. Naira's form pulsed with intense light as she directed the others, showing them how to modify their molecular patterns to process the unstable radiation. "Impossible," Anastasia whispered, staring at her readings. "They're not just surviving the energy flux, they're stabilizing it. Their bodies are acting as living quantum regulators." The warning alarms fell silent. The array's light settled into a steady glow. In the test chamber, 20 Lumiri stood transformed, their crystalline forms now showing new patterns, new capabilities that none had predicted. "Report," Kira demanded, still tense from the near disaster. Naira's voice carried new harmonics as she responded. "We are changed. The quantum resonance patterns your scientists designed allowed us to adapt far more than we expected. We can now process multiple wavelengths of energy simultaneously." High Counselor Zena arrived in the chamber, her ancient form radiating concern. "Are you certain you're unarmed?" "More than unharmed," Naira replied, her form shimmering with excitement. "We've evolved. The combination of human quantum engineering and our own crystalline nature has opened possibilities we never imagined." "Show them," she commanded the other volunteers. As the humans watched in amazement, the transformed Lumiri began to share energy between themselves in new ways, creating complex patterns of light and power that ripple through their forms. They were no longer just passive absorbers of solar energy. They had become living energy manipulators. "This changes everything," James said, reviewing the data. "With this level of adaptation, we won't need 12 arrays. The Lumiri themselves can help distribute and regulate the artificial solar energy. They've become part of the solution." Kira turned to Zena. "Will your people accept this level of change? This isn't just surviving. This is becoming something new." The ancient counselor studied the transformed volunteers, her deep sapphire form pulsing thoughtfully. "We faced extinction and found not just survival, but evolution. Our ancestors who first learned to process starlight would be proud to see us take this next step." As news of the successful test spread through the Lumiri system, thousands more volunteered for the transformation process. Human scientists worked tirelessly to refine the procedure, while the first transformed Lumiri helped their people understand and accept the changes. But even as they celebrated this breakthrough, no one forgot the urgency of their mission. Their sun continued to die, its radiation becoming more erratic each day. They had proven their solution could work. Now they had to implement it on a scale never before attempted, and time was running out. 1 year after first contact, the Lumiri system pulsed with new life. 11 massive solar arrays orbited their dying sun, each one a shimmering testament to cooperation between two vastly different species. But the true marvel wasn't the technology, it was the Lumiri themselves. Admiral Patel stood with Naira in the observation dome of the central station, watching the transformed Lumiri dance through space without protective vessels. Their crystalline forms had evolved far beyond their original capabilities, able to process and manipulate energy in ways that astonished even their human allies. The last group completes their transformation today, Naira said, her form rippling with colors that hadn't existed in their species a year ago. Every Lumiri child born now carries the adaptive capabilities naturally. And your son? Kira asked, though she already knew the answer from the daily reports. It will die within the next decade, Naira replied, but her tone carried no fear. But we no longer depend on it alone. The arrays provide more than enough energy, and our evolved forms can store power more efficiently than ever. We've even learned to share energy between ourselves during critical moments. The observation dome filled with light as a group of newly transformed Lumiri flew past, their forms refracting the artificial sunlight in dazzling patterns. Among them were the youngest members of their species, children who would grow up knowing neither the limitation of depending on a single star nor the fear of extinction. Dr. Ivanov joined them, carrying fresh data from Earth. The Council has approved the Permanent Scientific Exchange Program, she announced. They're establishing a joint research facility here to study crystalline computing and energy manipulation. And we have something to offer in return, Naira said. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing designs unlike anything the humans had seen. Our engineers have been working with James and his team. We believe we can adapt our crystalline technology to enhance your quantum drives. Your ships could travel between stars in days instead of weeks. Kira smiled, remembering the first tentative meetings a year ago, when both species had been unsure if they could even communicate effectively. Now they were planning decades of cooperation and joint ventures. A soft alarm chimed, and everyone turned to watch through the dome's crystal walls. Their dying sun was entering another phase of instability, its surface roiling with massive flares. But instead of causing panic, the event showcased how far the Lumiri had come. Hundreds of transformed Lumiri moved in concert, their crystalline forms creating a living network that caught and channeled the solar eruption. The excess energy was redistributed through the arrays, turned from a potential catastrophe into a resource. Beautiful, isn't it? High Counselor Zena had entered quietly, her ancient form now showing the same adaptive patterns as her transformed people. Not the sun's death, but what we've become in facing it. When we sent that first message to your ships, she continued, addressing Kira, we hoped only for survival. We never imagined transformation. Never dreamed that our greatest crisis would lead to our greatest evolution. The chamber resonated with harmonic tones as more Lumiri gathered to watch their sun's display. Humans stood among them, some wearing the latest generation of environmental suits designed to withstand the intense energy fields their allies now generated. We're establishing similar arrays in 3 nearby systems, Anastasia reported, reviewing plans on her datapad. The transformed Lumiri can travel between them easily now, establishing new colonies. Their ability to process multiple energy wavelengths means they can thrive around different types of stars. And they'll never be alone out there, James added, joining the group. Every new Lumiri colony will have human scientists, just as our deep space stations will have Lumiri energy specialists. The galaxy's about to become a much more interesting place. As if to emphasize his words, a quantum flash announced the arrival of another ship from Earth. This one carried not emergency supplies or scientific equipment, but families, the first human colonists who would make their homes among the Lumiri, raising their children alongside crystalline beings who danced among the stars. Naira's form pulsed with colors that expressed emotions beyond human perception. A year ago, we thought we were watching the end of everything we'd built. Instead, we were witnessing the beginning of something far greater. Through the dome, they could see the sun that had nursed the Lumiri to consciousness, now fading slowly into stellar night. But around it shone new stars, the arrays that would sustain life until they could build more, spreading through the galaxy together. Two species made stronger by crisis, transformed by cooperation, united by the simple decision to reach out to the unknown with hope instead of fear. And as both humans and Lumire looked out at the star-studded darkness beyond their system, they knew this wasn't just a story of survival. It was the first chapter of a much greater adventure, one they would write together among the stars.